Hello everyone and welcome to the Survivor Savant podcast. I am your host Nathan Newport, the self-proclaimed Survivor Savant himself, and today we are going over the events that occur. Okay. We're going over the events that had happened in Survivor episode 10, called Dinner, Movie, and Betrayal. Now, after Kelly was voted out, Lex is very happy with this, and he feels more pleased now that he felt like he got rid of the snake of the group. And there's starting to become kind of less trust with Lex now, especially coming from Ethan, because he's now starting to trust Brandon now because he voted with them getting Kelly out. However, Brandon's kind of the one who's also a little bit conniving, a little bit snakish, because one, he turned on his former ally Kim Powers, and two, he doesn't really seem to be the one who will look out for anybody else but himself. So it's kind of starting to be shown to other players that Brandon and Lex are kind of the two least people anybody could really trust in this game right now, especially after that vote out. But Lex doesn't seem to mind. Lex thinks that he can trust Brandon in this game, and he could trust him a lot more better than Frank. Because Frank has been really sour over the last few days. He's not really the most positive type. He's mostly focused on work. He's not really the one who likes making social bonds with other people. And in a game like this, social connections is something that really needs to be valued in this game. And we got someone like Frank who's more focused on work and less on the talking. And it's kind of like putting a target on your back immediately, because you're not really showing that you're really caring for other people, that you're not really getting to know them. And that's something you need to value a little bit too, kind of like keep it in balance almost. You had to learn to balance. I mean, I'm sure I've mentioned this before from past episodes of my podcast. Balance work life and social life. You still need to get things done in camp, but you also will want to be paying attention and to your social awareness and who you're feeling and you can get along with more, who you don't feel like you can get along with if you come further in the game. So while you got people like Frank who's more focused on work, you also got people like maybe Lex or T-Bird, who are definitely more focused. Okay, T-Bird does a lot of work, but she's also thinking socially on who she can bond with more in this game. So if you want to be a good player in Survivor, you gotta learn to be good in camp life, be good at challenges, but also be socially aware and always thinking on what you can do to further your game a lot better. And right now Lex seems to think that he's a lot better moving forward in this game with Brandon as his ally. Meanwhile, you got Kim Powers, who used to be Brandon's teammate / ally, who, after realizing that Brandon had switched his vote from from Lex to Kelly, she felt like that she'd been lied to from Brandon, and she doesn't really feel as though that she can really trust him anymore. She thought he was her ally, but it doesn't seem to be like that anymore. And I will say this, before they ever merge, Brandon was considering throwing Kim Powers under the bus. So if that's not a sign that Brandon shouldn't be trusted in this game and that he's only here to look out for himself, then that's kind of a big red flag there if you ask me. But we're starting to see that the game has taken its toll on everybody, both game-wise and physically wise. When we see Big Tom, how do I explain this? Apparently he's been growing this like big boil or something on his neck. It looked gross. He's been calling it as like his third eye, or I think Ethan was the one who started calling it his third eye. But Big Tom, I think it's been calling him the boil, like his extra horn, and that he's probably growing it just so he can like fight off rhinos or other kind of animals. First off, I just want to apologize for anybody who's listening to this. There's yard guys outside, and I really need to get this podcast out. So, I was just like, screw it, I'm gonna do a podcast. I know there's yard guys in the background doing their work, but I'm gonna move forward anyway. So, heads up, there are yard guys in the background. So if that's what you're listening to while I'm talking, I apologize ahead of time. But anyway, he's been growing this boil, and everybody's been like poking at it, trying to squeeze it. It's the weirdest thing. It's like watching Dr. Pimple Popper. And I've never watched Dr. Pimple Popper. I'm sorry. I don't care if you find it satisfying or not. It's still gross to me that you're popping pimples or zits or whatever. Oh, good grief. But yeah, that's about the only type of entertainment they got out there. Like, they just want to pop something so bad. Like pop a boil, or I don't know. It's gross. They are, if I remember right, they also have another form of entertainment or games that they have that they could play. They actually set up a like a checkerboard by using rocks painted red and yellow. And of course, I'm not one for like knowing. I'm not an expert at checkers, but if I were to get somebody to teach me how to play checkers, or maybe even chess, really, I know my buddy Smiley, he's an expert in chess, and his dad has done a few tours, if I'm not mistaken. Not tours, but competitions. So I feel like I definitely need to learn how to play chess better, because I don't quite understand all that much. I mean, I know the pieces. You got the pawn, the knight, the rook, the bishop, the queen, and the king. That's about as much as chess as far as I know. I also know that, okay, I tell a lie. I also know that there are 64 squares on a chessboard, and yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about as much to know about chess. But yeah, okay, let's be real. If you can find other ways to entertain yourself while you're out there on the island, if you're being bored or suffering from like, there's nothing to do other than work, you know, you gotta find some time to like have fun. And I mean, they're not in the like, they're in the African savannah. There's not like a beach that they can go to. There is a watering hole, but I don't know. Maybe since it would be around summertime, it would make sense for you to go swimming. I mean, be wary of sharks if you're at a beach. Not that I'm saying there are always sharks at a beach, but still, I think swimming is probably one of the best activities you can do if you're bored out there, or if you're. I would definitely suggest. That's like making cards or making board games. I don't know. Oh, if you can find time to like entertain yourself and really make sure that you're all, trying to keep yourself sane out there, and also keeping yourself at work and really focus on the game, then I think you probably have like a better chance of making sure that you get out of this game with like a clear head and clear conscience in my mind, in your mind. I'm sorry, just to rephrase that. But yeah, everybody is really on hiatus after that vote. I know Ethan is. The fact that Brand's trying to get Lex to trust him more, he's really worried about that. And I know Ethan has been kind of worrying Lex about Brandon because he's trying to get him to like really focus on the fact that Brandon would probably turn on you if he had a chance. But Lex doesn't believe it. And it's really hard when you see that one of your former allies is trying to trust someone more than you, which is tough, which is really tough to bear. Excuse me, I need to drink. This is water, by the way. I would never drink beer. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a aguaholic, as I like to say, because I love to drink water more. But yeah, I just need a drink. And we're starting to see that, you know, people aren't always who you think they are. When they start to see different, show different sides of themselves and really start to show what makes them someone you can trust as a person. You know, in a game like Survivor, you turn into somebody else that you normally don't see her as. When you're somebody who's more, somebody who's not seen as like a physical or a game competition threat, but surprisingly, you could actually be a competition threat, even though your size doesn't say so. You might be seen as someone who's probably not the brightest or smartest, but you actually might find that you could outsmart somebody when they least expect it. You know, appearances are deceiving. You know, like Professor Hubicki would say. That's a Christian from Survivor David vs. Goliath, if you guys don't know. But yeah, appearances are deceiving, and when you start seeing a different side that nobody would expect from somebody else, that just lets you know that you have to figure out how to play the game with them, whether you want to work with them or if you want to vote them out. There's always that stirring in your mind that could really be something you need to really focus on. But anyway, let's cut into the reward challenge for this episode. Now, this reward challenge requires people to be split up into pairs. Now, because there are 8 people left in the game, they need to be split up into 4 pairs of 2. And what they do is they would put their names in a hat, they would draw 2 names, and whoever's names come out, that's who they're partnered with. The first names to be drawn out were Frank and Brandon. Those two are so polar opposite, you could never find a much hilarious scenario than see those two paired together. You know, you got Frank, who's more serious, he's straight, he's definitely, you know, more of a guy who likes to do work rather than fool around. You got then you got Brandon, who's skinny, who's gay, and he's not really one to like really say that he's not afraid. To say that he's not really the biggest fan, you know, of how people have been treating him or how they've they're more like not really getting the best comfort, or as if that means anything. I don't know if it does mean anything, but it makes sense in my mind. So, like I said, those two polar opposites. Next we have Kim Powers and Big Tom. The shortest and the tallest, or as they call their little duo in this challenge, Big and Tall. Oh no, wait, Big and Small. I think that's more appropriate. Big and Small. Then we got Lex and Teresa, aka T-Bird. And finally we got Ethan, who's been a really good athlete, and Kim Johnson, the oldest person, and he's still in the game. Now, you think with if having someone like Kim Johnson in your pair, or you think you might lose the challenge? Well, actually, let's talk about it and find out. So, here's what the challenge is. Basically, it's kind of like a blast from the past. That's from last season, and with it being an obstacle course, they had to go through these certain obstacles, from going under her obstacles to climbing up a ladder or a rope, to ring a bell, to go over a wall, to build a ladder, her to get over another obstacle, and the first pair to make it through the finish line moves on to the final round. There will be 2 rounds. 2 pairs go at each other. The first pair to make it out of 1 round and moves on to the next round, and then the next round, that pair moves on to the final round with the person who finished first. The final 2 pairs, whoever makes it across the finish line wins the reward. I hope that makes sense to you guys as I was talking, because boy oh boy, I like to mumble up words. But anyway, so the reward is the winning pair gets to go on a little dinner and movie. Dinner and movie. So, yeah, it's a dinner and movie. They're basically going to be set up at this private screening with a movie screen in front of them, a projector, and all the fixings of classic movie food that you would eat. There'll be hot dogs, candy, and popcorn, and also soda, which is, by the way, Mountain Dew. Survivor, brought to you by Mountain Dew. So it's really cool. I'm not gonna lie. I'm straight up. If I were to I mean, I don't know if any of you guys know this, but I am single. Never had a girlfriend in my life. But if I were to be dating somebody, if I got to take someone out on a date, I would love to take them to a classic drive-in movie theater. And which is great too, because there is a drive-in movie theater going to be built in my town next year. So I'm looking forward to having that be here, and I would love to have the opportunity to go over there and get to, if I ever meet somebody, I hope to take them out on a date and take them to a drive-in movie theater. But if I wasn't, I also will be happy to take my friends along too. I mean, who doesn't love going to a drive-in movie theater? But anyway, so ladies, if you guys are hearing this, I'm somebody who loves movies and pop culture references, and if I were to go on a date with you, that's where I would take you, drive-in movie theater. Not that I'm promoting myself like I was on the freaking Bachelor, but anyway. So we have our pairs. First pairs are Lex and Teresa versus Brandon and Frank. So they start the challenge, and it looks like Lex and Teresa might have gotten on the start, gotten off good at the start, and then Brandon and Frank are kind of trailing behind, but they were surprisingly able to catch up with them, and Brandon and Frank, and eventually they were able to beat them when they got to the ladder, part of the challenge. Now, what's interesting about the ladder is that the ladder had these different shapes at the end of the rungs. So when you're trying to build the ladder, you have to match the shape of the end of the rungs with the sides of the ladder, almost like a puzzle. And Brandon and Frank were able to figure that out, and they were able to walk across the finish line. So they move on to the final round. Next round, we have Big Tom and Kim Powers versus Ethan and Kim Johnson. Now, you think to yourselves, oh, Big Tom and KP have this down immediately. I mean, Ethan's paired with the oldest is Kim Johnson, and boy, oh boy, you shouldn't underestimate someone with gray hair. You should not. Because Ethan and Kim Johnson, even though they were slowest, they eventually were able to beat Kim Powers and Big Tom, surprisingly, and make it to the end of the race, which is awesome. It's really cool to see that somebody who's Kim's age, which, by the way, she's not like old, like in her 70s. She was in her 50s, like early to mid 50s, I should say. I think that'd be accurate. But yeah, just goes to show age just a number, and anybody can keep up with anyone. So we had the final two pairs: Kim Johnson and Ethan versus Frank and Brandon. So one of these pairs will get to go to a movie theater night, while the rest of them just head back to camp. So the race is on. I'm sounding like a freaking horse track announcer. And the race is on. And the two of them are trying to beat the other. Eventually, Frank and Brandon were able to go a lot faster than Kim and Ethan. And surprisingly, the one pair that were polar opposites won the challenge. That just makes this reward so much satisfying, just to see the two of them go over to this thing and eBay. Okay, so Brandon and Frank, they get to go to the movie night. They walk up to this private screening area. It's starting to get dark. They got everything from popcorn to hot dogs with all the fixings. They got movie candy. I think one of them was M&Ms and Twizzlers. Now, I'm an M&Ms guy, and okay, I'll take some red licorice, just as long as it's not black. I'm not a big black licorice person. But there was also soda, again, Mountain Dew. And for the movie, it's ironically called, what was the movie called? I know it starred Robert Redford. It's not Africa Screams, because that's an Abbott and Costello movie, which, by the way, I love it. It's a good classic movie. Might be some racial stereotype, and for those of you who don't find that appealing. So if that's not your thing, I wouldn't suggest watching it. But for those of you who are interested, especially if you're Abbott and Costello fans, definitely highly recommend it, watching that. Then we got, okay, wait, I gotta look up what that film was, because I know it starred Robert Redford. If you guys know who I'm talking about, or what I'm talking about, please put it in the comments, because, I mean, I could look it up myself after, but yeah. That's the movie they were watching, and while they enjoy their food and their drinks, and they openly admit that they did have a good time, but outside of the game, where if they were to be outside of this game, would they actually meet someone else who's exactly like them in real life? Absolutely not. But, they learn to, keep it lower level and just enjoy each other's good company, and, just enjoy the movie. It's funny because at the end, and as it was coming near its end, and the reward, they were checking if all the popcorn her having, and Frank was like, "Yeah, you ate it all," and Brandon was like, "Liar, I saw you take a couple of pieces." Okay. I'm for one who's open to hanging out at the movie. Even if it's somebody who, okay, I'm gonna be real. There's never been a time where I've gone to a place and I've never liked or disliked anybody. There's never been a moment like that where I've disliked somebody, hey, who I didn't want to be with in the first place. But if I were, I would just calmly, and enjoyably enjoy each other's company and enjoy the film. I would play, like that. I'm not going to be, the type you say, hey, keep your mouth shut, I'm trying to watch a movie. No, I'm not going to be rude. That's the least, that's the last thing you would ever do to somebody, especially if you're in a game like Survivor. If you went on a movie night with them, don't be rude. Just enjoy the movie, and eat the snacks, and try not to act offended by someone's presence. But yeah, if it were real life, I wouldn't have a problem at all. I enjoyed people's company. But yeah, everybody at camp is like, they were probably laughing at the fact that Frank and Brandon are sharing an award with each other, and the fact that they're commenting about how polar opposite these guys are, and that they wouldn't last in the real world together, or they wouldn't never meet each other in the real world. They find it funny, and I don't know, it's kind of comical. I'm sure everybody agree that it's kind of comical for two people like those to be together. But times have changed now. A lot of people can get along with each other or just fine, and as long as they know who they are and what they like, and if they can find common interests, that's great. But I know there are some people out there who don't like each other, and as I know this is a Survivor podcast and not Big Brother podcast, but as another host of another competition series would say, love one another. That's from Julie Chen, host of Big Brother. But yeah, coming back to the game now, Ethan's starting to realize that because of Lex's closeness with Brandon and him trusting him now, he's worried that he's not going to be able to trust him again. So, since the immunity challenge is coming up, and if he wasn't able to win it, Ethan would consider voting for Lex if he had the chance, because if you can't get him to trust you, or if you can't be able to trust them, they're not going to be perfect for your game anymore. So, and then Lex also catches wind of this, and he's starting to realize that in this next challenge, he has to win immunity. Otherwise, he's gone for sure. So we cut to the immunity challenge, and it's a fire-making challenge. Now, we've seen this in the past 2 challenges. However, the first one was at the beach. The second one was in the outback, and instead of letting it fire her and letting it burn through a rope, it was instead light a fire in a bucket or a barrel, and then pour water on one side and keep the fire lit just so it can go high enough to burn a cauldron or an urn. And basically, it is what Boron was. I mean, not Boron, Borneo. That, I hope I didn't say Boron if I meant to say Borneo. If I meant to say Borneo for the first season. It's Borneo, not Boron. Boron is the tribe name of Survivor Africa. But anyway, so basically what they gotta do is they gotta gather supplies for their fire pit, and with a magnifying glass, they have to light their supplies that they have in order to get a fire going. First person to get a fire high enough to burn through a rope and raise a flag wins immunity. Now, he did mention this. If at any point, if he's seen anybody, he break the rope without the fire starting, they're immediately out of the challenge. That's an important thing to note. So, with that being said, the challenge starts. Everybody's racing to get their supplies. There's sticks. There's dried up palm fronds. There's, I'm sure there'd be grass. There's also probably elephant dung out there if they somehow were able to supply that. And they gathered everything they need in order to keep going, or get the fire started. And then they also got a magnifying glass, of course, to get the fire started. I don't know why they didn't have flint or matches to help start a fire, or shoot, even the torches. I don't know why they didn't have those incorporated in for this, but apparently they wanted to make it more challenging by having a magnifying glass. I guess that kind of answers my question. They wanted a magnifying glass just to make it more challenging, because it might take a long time for somebody to light a fire with that. It wouldn't surprise me. Talking about fire is making me parched. So everybody's getting their fire started. There's mostly been smoke, but eventually some people were able to get a light spark or fire started. Frank was one of them. Lex is one of them. I don't know if anybody else other than Frank and Lex were able to start. Maybe Brandon too, or maybe Big Tom. I could be wrong. But and Kim Powers is trying her hardest to make sure that she had everything she needed. And wait, yeah, I think Kim also might have gotten a fire started. And she's trying to get supplies, making sure that the fire doesn't die out. And Frank was getting some too. And somewhere around that, Frank accidentally hits the rope, and with the supplies that he got, and Jeff called it. Frank's out. He touched the rope without letting it burn, and Frank steps aside, and Kim Powers immediately just throws her stuff on the ground. After she saw how the fly had gone Frank's station, and she was like in tears, almost like frustrated by that. But Jeff was like, "Keep going, Kim. You still got a chance. Keep going." Frank only hit his stuff. If he didn't burn it. So Kim Powers is able to keep going. You know, she's starting to manage her fire a little bit better. But as soon as you know it, Lex was able to burn through that rope and raise the flag, and Lex is safe from tribal council. So Ethan's plan to get Lex out wasn't going to happen, which leads to another alternative option: to vote out Brandon, since nobody can be able to trust him because he flipped from one alliance to another, and he doesn't seem like somebody you can take forward in this game. So everybody at camp is talking about how who'd get out. I know Ethan is confining with his former Baron members, Big Tom and Kim Johnson, to vote out Lex. And he's also probably talking with Frank and Teresa to get Brandon out. Meanwhile, you got Lex over here, who's really getting tired of Frank and his bitter, sour attitude in camp, and how he's not really connecting with a lot of people all that well emotionally or socially. So he would much rather see Frank go out than Brandon. He's really still convinced that he can trust Brandon more, even though Brandon is probably somebody who would stab you in the back the first chance he gets. I mean, this is Survivor. If you have a chance to get somebody out before you would take it. But at the same time, dude, Brandon's not somebody you can trust. So it's a hard thing to do. It really is. But anyway, we get to the tribal council. And at tribal council, we see Kelly coming back. This time, she's not in the game. She's in the jury. She's admittedly, he upset after being voted out, and now seeing everybody, he's still there, and she's probably even more upset now that Lex is wearing that necklace, keeping him safe. And of course, everybody's talking about trust and making sure that they have the numbers to get who they want out, especially Lex, seeing how he wants Frank out. We definitely see attitudes start to clash here, and people's personas clash, and as much as people would like to get along with each other, we know for a fact that nobody here can really trust one another or get along with another, because this is a game for $1 million, and whoever you depend on or think might help your game a lot better, it might end up being the wrong decision, but you never know. But with that being said, we see them go into the voting booth. Lex is very adamant about getting Frank out. He's tired of his sour and bittersweet attitude, and he's ready to see him go. Bye-bye. And Brandon does the same thing. He votes for Frank, voting with Lex. Meanwhile, you have Kim Powers, Kim Johnson, Ethan, Frank, Teresa, and Big Tom. I'm pointing my thumb out. And the 9th person voted out of Survivor Africa, and the 2nd member of our jury, Brandon. Brandon is the 2nd person to join the jury. His torch is snuffed. He wishes everybody good luck and have fun, and Big Tom says to Brandon as he's leaving, "See you, sugar bear." Oh, I love Big Tom, but good grief, dude. But yeah, that's crazy. Lex was out of the majority now, and now Lex could probably start to worry about his position in the game, and whether or not he might be out next is one thing, but he better hope to win more immunity necklaces, otherwise he's going to be the next target out. And, Brandon, after he was voted out, at the end of the credits, a lot of contestants got to say what they need to after they've been eliminated, and Brandon admittedly says that I wouldn't blame him for voting him out, because he did cause a lot of trouble, and he regrets the way things have left off with Kim and Powers, and he hated that he had to break their friendship and their alliance, and he hopes to rekindle that. But even though he didn't win, he did feel like he won. Good for him. Good for him. I mean, I would definitely feel like a winner too, just because I got to go on Survivor. But at the same time, I would give it my all and try to make it to the end. And obviously Brandon was trying to make it to the end, but he just didn't really do a good job at it. No offense, Brandon. No offense. But anyway, that's the end of this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this. We're starting to get down to it now. There's only 7 players left. It's starting to get down to it now, where it could just be more. It won't be just 7 anymore. It'll soon be 6, then 5, then 4, and then eventually 3, and eventually 2 players will remain. Question is, who out of this 7 might make it to the final tribal council? Only one way to find out. Stay tuned for next week, as we have new 3 episodes, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed being outclassed, outspoken, and outsmarted with the Survivor Savant podcast. I know that was probably out of order, but who cares? This is Nathan Newport, signing out. See you later, guys.